not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts on a bridge to history, what body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psychology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out. From WBRN Radio in Boston and on Boston Red Network, Friday Java on the 15th of September 2017. Now, we have some special coverage going on this weekend. I'm not certain exactly where we will be going with it. I know we have a tribute to Dick Gregory coming up this weekend, and we'll see how that comes out in Landover, Maryland. And there is another story out there with Google, and we'll hit that today, but some of these will go to special presentations, but at this point, not certain about that. Let's just get to the news and where we are. We, of course, have the University of Virginia's Larry Sabato. He'll be along here shortly. New polls. Some Americans express troubling racial attitudes, even as a majority oppose white supremacy. DJ Trump has reappeared in the news on his normal white supremacy, equal opportunity employer situation, equal opportunity person situation that both parties to the murders in Charlottesville were equally responsible. It was a resolution that he signed against white supremacy, etc. But that just simply will not cut it in 2017. You can't move down the line or try to wiggle. And basically that is what he is doing after signing a resolution against white supremacy, alt-white, etc. And then say, well, gee, some people said that both sides were there. Now, the anti-fascist coalitions are totally different. And Senator Scott from North Carolina talks about this. Or is it South Carolina? South Carolina. I get those Carolinas mixed up. doesn't much matter. They should put them both together. Anyway, nonetheless, the history of the Klan is totally different from the anti-fascist coalition, and they are not out lynching people, murdering people, and a history of violence. They are actually in self-defense. The BBC had a good story by one of their correspondents, was in Charlottesville and saw, of course, the violence caused by the white supremacists. And that has been the confrontation all along from Berkeley and the so-called right speech movement. I won't call it free speech movement because it has absolutely nothing to do with free speech, period. And Coda was going there and some more right-wing relics. One of the big problems here is that there is a transition within the right-wing movement. We'll just said this to the Washington Post, and I was looking at an article here, one of many, obviously. The headline here, Amnesty Done. Trump's tests the faith of supporters with talk of an immigration deal. This is with the Dreamers. We did a special on the Dreamers with Chance Build a Wall, warning rapists coming from Mexico. What's happening with Trump supporters is they're not separating rhetoric from a reality. And unforgiving promise to deport millions. Well, first of all, there's a practical side to deportations. The estimate and the various estimates of how many undocumented workers there are within the U.S., they really don't know. 11 million, but if you just deported 10%, that would be 1 million, which is not a large figure, but at the same time it would have devastating effects on the way a business is done within the U.S. And that is the only reason. Now, let's not get confused here. This is one of these business issues, as is the Dreamers Act. It involves labor, and labor being available to the business interests. Otherwise, you would have 20-30% of the people being deported. It's easy to deport people, but it's much harder, as they found out in places like Houston with their rebuilding efforts, to find workers. Trump supporters in Ohio, West Virginia, etc., and those outlying rural hamlets are not moving to Texas to do the rebuilding. And there's also a learning curve there. There just are not enough carpenters and trade types out there to fill the holes. That is a problem, and that's a problem in many sectors of the economy as far as finding workers. What has happened is, in a modern capitalist society, there are quote-unquote winners and losers. Are sectors that cool, as what happened in mining, the petroleum sector. Workers are laid off. Some workers come back. A lady I know in Houston got laid off. She never went back into what they euphemistically call their oil and gas. So this is one of those situations that you have. Same with construction workers. When the bubble burst, many construction workers were unemployed. Thus, many of the undocumented workers went back home or went to different industries or moved completely out of the area. Now in places like Las Vegas, etc., they have a problem finding construction workers, repair workers. There is a learning curve involved. I was talking a few weeks ago with a carpet layer, happened to be Latino, and he was explaining that they themselves it's a family business, have problems finding workers. And when they find workers, it's very hard work, and the workers just simply don't stay with it. And there is a learning curve to many of these trades. It's not something you go out there and learn the trade to be efficient with the trade within just a few weeks. It just does not happen that way. So this is part of the problem with immigration. And when you start talking about the young people, that is a problem. Those people have finished high school. They are teenagers brought here by their parents, no fault of their own, up to about 36 or so. And there's a pathway to citizenship for them. Once they finish high school, go to trade school or go to university, and many are on jobs. They have driving privileges, etc., and they are, quote unquote, what they used to say, useful citizens. Let me go on with this. The build a wall thing. First of all, there's already a wall there. They're just working on that. Now, all this controversies around the deal that was floated out there, and that's actually what happened. DJ Trump made the deal. Then DJ Trump said, well, we haven't made the deal. But on Wednesday, Trump signaled his embrace of granting a legal status to some immigrants who were brought here illegally by their parents. Now, quibbling over the numbers, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter. There's I forget how many thousand there are, but if he just granted citizenship to, we'll say 10 or 15,000, citizenship is granted. And according to this article, the DJ Trump's sins include not just a refusal to issue an ultimatum on the wall, but his newfound willingness to work with detested establishment of Republicans and of the Democratic Party, while party leaders on both sides frame the issue of undocumented childhood immigrants in compassionate terms of his view. Any accommodation and affront to U.S. sovereignty and the rule of law. Well, and this is where nut cases like Ann Coulter come out. But Ann Coulter's sector that she represents is losing out in this battle, and that reason is a business reason. If you are not getting a wall, I prefer President Pence. Well, Pence is more right-wing than Trump. There's no doubt about that. A headline over at Bannon's, old Bannon, who used to be in the White House, who was kicked out, declared amnesty done. It doesn't matter what they call it, period. Yet, lasting political costs of engaging with top Democrats remains ambiguous, while Coulter and others vent. Well, they can vent all they want, but they're out of the loop. Remains hesitant about breaking with the president publicly. Here's the problem. If they break with DJ Trump, they have nowhere to go. Period. Because Trump, very wisely, is in re-election mode. And as long as he's in re-election mode, Pence is in no movement mode. And anyone's been to a goat roping contest knows immediately if old Pence doesn't gear up for 2020, he will not gear up. And we're heading into 2018. And any agreements that DJ Trump makes with the Democratic leadership, understanding what this leadership is. The Senator Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, these people have been around the Democratic Party for a very long time. They go along basically to get along. Now there has been some movement on, and we'll have a special program on this, on single payer. Bernie Sanders, 15 other senators now endorse it. That is more movement than has been made since Harry Truman. Harry S. Truman tried to do it. LBJ tried to do it. Even Richard Nixon flirted with it. And then it went on to Wild Bill Clinton. And President Obama finally got it done in the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, as a first step. Now, it was only a first step. But one of the things to remember in U.S. political history, there are times that things leapfrog. And at this particular time, when the Republicans tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act, it didn't work thanks to two courageous women, McCloskey of Alaska and the Senator Collin of Maine, along with the old man McCain from Arizona. It didn't work, and now mechanisms on the Dreamers Act, there will, in our opinion, be some sort of Dreamers bill put forward, and it's sort of like the debt ceiling extension into December, and that will go beyond that. Now, in the House, the Republicans have come up with some insane budget plan, it will go nowhere. And this is part of the problem. DJ Trump understands that these coalitions that he has within his Republican Party just simply cannot bring the bacon home. So if he's going to get bacon, eggs, toast, home fries, etc., he has to go talk to the Democratic Party, the same thing that G.W. Bush did, and get some sort of compromise program, which means everybody doesn't get everything, but he'll get a piece of his wall, and they'll keep as many people here working, and that's the key to that. So that is that subject and how it plays out. From Steve King, he's a right-winger in Iowa. If this stands and we end up with amnesty, it's not amnesty. The base that was put together because of immigration will start to peel off in a significant way. Well, so what? What are they going to do? That is what their problem is. They can peel all they want, but if they peel, don't show up, they just simply just do not show up. And then an email message to supporters signed by Trump's political committee told Trump, there's been a lot of noise today. Let's set the record straight. In the simplest terms, we will build a wall, not a fence. Well, and they already have parts of a wall. That is quibbling there, and that's just one of the situations that come. The 2010 an analysis of the election, this is by a political scientist, Philip Kinkner of Hamilton College, found that among DJ Trump supporters, 67% supported building a southern wall, with 80% saying the English well, and 80% were opposed to letting Syrian refugees into the country. But again, as 20% did not. And you have to remember, in this election, very, very close election, Hillary Clinton would remind you of that, it came down to 80,000 votes. So it's nothing that you can literally a drumbeat there. That's what the White House is wrestling with right now. Jim McLaughlin, a campaign poster who still consults with the White House. But it really, in the summer of 2015, he said on CNN, DJ Trump, he would deal with groups with a big heart. Well, the situation is that the Republican rhetoric just simply will not rise to the day. Now, what Bannon says, it doesn't say he's not worried about he has a word about losing the House now because of this, because of DECA. Well, if he loses the House, it's not because of DECA, period. And Laura Ingraham, who is friendly with Trump, mocked the president after news trickled out about the deal. Exactly what the campaign not, she wrote on Twitter. She later said, build a wall, build a wall. Well, again, and from old Rush Limbaugh, who was forced to flee Miami Beach. I don't know if he's got any power back there yet or not. Directing their irritation at the media and at the congressional Republicans. Well, again, these standard bearers for the Republican campaign, what more can one say? Let's go to Chelsea Manning. In an unfortunate situation with poor Chelsea Manning, Harvard had invited him to be a fellow there and to speak, and now the former head of the Congressional Budget Office, Mr. Ellendorf, decided that he was uninvited there to speak, and we'll read that statement in a minute here, but the visitors that were invited there will go to whom they are as fellows, and some of the other types that they had there as fellows. In other words, none of these people most of these people, I should say, that they have as fellows, do not have clean hands. The director of Papillon, the director of the CIA, withdrew a planned appearance there. Who cares? And has the audacity to call an American hero, Chelsea Manning, an American traitor. Well, that is very debatable. And then Michael Moran, he's a former CIA director who spent more than 3 decades, resigned from the Harvard Belfast Center for Science, and good riddance to him. So he is gone. But this whole turn that's turning here. Ms. Manning, let me get this right, is a transgender person and was pardoned by President Barack Obama from the military Supermax prison. Oh, this is at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. Ben Manning, the prominent voice for LGBT rights, and that's what she would have been speaking about. Manning said a responsibility to the public compelled her to leak the government secrets for the people. Now, you're obviously going to have these people like H.R. McMaster this month to lead us throughout the federal government, importing them to conduct an hour-long training session next week. In particular, has prioritized the matter, calling it a leading reason for the decision to have the agency's counterintelligence mission anyway to curtail secrets. Period. Well, anyway, this is out here, and let me get to this article here. And this is I won't read it all. The Institute of Politics to Kennedy Service School is pleased to announce additional visiting fellows. And this is some of those. Sylvester Sly James Jr., he's the mayor of Kansas City. And for transit modernization and stretching downtown, a 20% improvement in third grade in the readership, so and so on. And Chelsea E. Manning of Washington, D.C., a network security expert and former U.S. Army intelligence analyst. She will speak on social, technological, and economic ramifications of artificial intelligence through her through her columns, I should say, opinion columns in for The Guardian and for the New York Times. As a trans woman, she advocates for queer and transgender rights, and they are following her court-martial, etc. We'll get into that. And Robbie Monk, visiting fellow and resident scholar, he was the campaign manager for Hillary the Monster Clinton, and they lost the campaign, but yet they have him there. And this infamous character, Sean Spicer, I mean, you're talking about people they should reject. He should have been rejected a long time ago. He's from Rhode Island and was in Connecticut. Holds a master's degree from a Naval War College. Serves as a commander in Naval also what? So he'll be there through 17 and 18. And some of the other fellows won't go into Mika Baginski. Oh, boy. And this Nazi here, Corey Lewinsky. Wait a minute here. Lubowinski. Anyway, he used to be one of the talking pieces around. And let me go to somewhere in Ellendorf's here. Statement. I don't know, maybe sometimes you lose things around this place. But anyway, he disinvited Chelsea Manning from appearing there, and that does happen sometime. We'll have to get Douglas Ellendorf's statement. He said basically he made a mistake and it was on him, and now with the heat they disinvite him. And this is one of the problems even within the Kennedy School, based upon the Wilsonian foreign policy, Wilson being a racist, and you still have elements out there. So when people were critical of President Obama for various things President Obama did, I think this is a statement here. This is from Douglas Ellendorf. It said on Wednesday, the Institute of Politics at the Kennedy School announced Chelsea Manning would be one of roughly 10 visiting fellows. We invited Ms. Manning because the school's long-standing approach to visiting speakers to invite some people who have significant influence in events in the world, even if they do not share our values. Anyway, some of the visitors to the school are invited for a few hours to give a talk, and that's what they will let Chelsea Manning do. Among the visitors who stay more than a few hours are some designated as visiting fellows, resident fellows, non-resident fellows. They got a number of things. We invited to spend a day at the Kennedy School. Specifically, we invited her to meet with students and others who are interested in talking with her, and then to give remarks in the forum where the audience would have ample opportunity to ask questions. On that basis, we also named Chelsea Manning a visiting fellow. However, and now I think that designating Chelsea Manning as a visiting fellow was a mistake for which I accept responsibility. There are very many people in this time and place accept that. I still think that having her speak in the forum and talk with students is consistent with our long-standing approach, which puts great emphasis on the values of hearing from diverse collections of people. But I see more clearly now that many people view visiting fellows title as horrific, so we should weigh that consideration when offering invitations. They didn't weigh that with Sean Spicer and some of the rest of these assholes that they got there. I think my assessment of that balance for Chelsea Manning was wrong. Therefore, we are withdrawing the invitation to her to serve as a visiting fellow. I apologize to her and many concerned people from whom I heard today. No doubt he did hear of that. We'll put this on our Twitter feed where you can, for your perusal, from Mr. Ellendorf there at the Kennedy School. I'll get it right in a minute here. With that, we'll get it up on Facebook. Now we'll go to the University of Virginia and Larry Sabato. We talked about white supremacy here with Trump, so we won't have to spend a lot of time on this. But nonetheless, this is by the center itself. Surveys conducted by Reuters in conjunction with the Center. A new Reuters ISOPO poll conducted in conjunction with the University of Virginia, that's at Charlottesville, are some troubling levels of support for certain racially charged ideas, and this is why there's so much controversy within the Trump operation. By extremist groups, the survey also found backing for keeping Confederate monuments in place, the removal of which has been a hot button issue. Incidentally, the city of Dallas removed a Robert A. Lee statue, which is a good thing. As often the case, these survey results can be interpreted in quite different ways. On one hand, despite the events in Charlottesville and elsewhere, a few people surveyed expressed direct support for the hate groups. But on the other hand, it will be disturbing to many that not sufficient proportions of those polled demonstrated neutrality or indifference, or worse, expressed support for antiquated views on race. It was a large sample of 5,300 people. This was conducted from the August 21st to September 5th in the aftermath of the neo-Nazi demonstration there at Charlottesville. Amongst the questions asked, 14% of all respondents agreed that white people are under attack and disagreed with the statement that non-white people are under attack. And this is basically what Trump was talking about, 15%. It's actually more than that, but nearly one-third of respondents, 31% strongly are somewhat agreed that the country needs to protect and preserve white European heritage. That is fairly large there. Another third, 34%, strongly or somewhat disagreed with the statement, and 29% neither agreed or disagreed. 50 years after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down, that was a Brown decision, 18% agree with the statement that a marriage should only be allowed between two people of the same race. 18%. And a third failed to express a tolerance of interracial marriage. Amongst whites, 17% agreed that marriage should be restricted to the same race, with 10% neither agreeing or disagreeing. This is slightly higher than non-whites at 15 agreed 12. In separate questions, each asked whether the extent of response to support varied. 6% of respondents say they have strong and somewhat supported alt-right. 8% expressed support for white nationalism. 4% supported neo-Nazis. Boy, this is a weird situation here. On Confederate monuments, respondents were given a choice between removing the monuments, and a lot of this is how the question is asked. 3/5, 67% said Confederate monuments should remain in public space, while a quarter, 26%, said they should be removed. Amongst African Americans, 54% said all monuments should be removed, versus 25% who were inclined to keep the monuments. Whites strongly are different, with 2/3, 67%, saying they should remain in place. Well, they're not remaining in place. A plurality of Democrats favored removing the monuments, 46%. And notice how they said a plurality of Democrats anyway, versus 38% for leaving them in place. About what? That's a 6-point difference. Republicans 81% to 10%. Independents by 62 to 10. Overwhelmingly preferred keeping the monuments there, and that's where the Trump voters are. Amongst these people with a bachelor's degree or higher, 51% keeping the monuments in place, so it wasn't just for the ignorant, versus 34% for removing them. Some results indicated broad acceptance of racial equality. 70% strongly agreed that people of different races should be free to live wherever they wanted. Well, that's good. After LBJ's housing bill in 1968, a large percentage agreed that all races should be treated equally. 34% of respondents strongly or somewhat agree with the statement that white people are currently under attack in this country, with 38% disagreeing, strong disagreement, 28% ranking there. Amongst whites, 29% disagree with the statement, whereas 54% of non-whites disagree with the states. Controversially, 59% Democrats disagreed, 47% strongly, and it shows you what the makeup of the Republican Party is. 59% strongly or somewhat disagree with the statement that racial minorities are currently under attack in this country. No doubt about that. And while 22% strongly or somewhat disagree. And this is a very large survey. Now, just because it's a very large survey does not mean that it's a very accurate survey. Roughly 1/3 of respondents, 32%, said they support Black Lives Matter, while another 24% indicated a middle position of neither supporting or opposing. Amongst African Americans, 62% voiced support, while 26% of Europeans and 33% of Latinos. A plurality of respondents were against Black Lives Matter. However, 37% somewhat strongly supported the organization. You have to understand that Black Lives Matter is a symbolic situation. There is an organization, but itself, in terms of the organization is not very strong. They have a few chapters around, but a lot of people are using the slogan and moving on from there. The strongest core support to the group came from whites, with 43% opposing Black Lives Matter. There's also obvious partisan differences. 52% of Democrats support Black Lives Matter. 62% of Republicans oppose it. And this is why you hear the rhetoric, So the final results methodology are here, and the cross tabs are there. And the poll sizable number of respondents. Select neither agree nor disagree option, given the racially charged and controversial nature of it. Don't know. So this is where they are, and we'll just place this up. And I don't have the whole survey here. Well, here's a cross tab. Maybe we'll get this in here. Incidentally, Google has been charged with sex discrimination. Oh, I see. Out in California in district court, they're not in federal court, but there's long been a controversy. We'll do a special program on that. Let's just go to some polling very quickly here. This is from Real Clear Politics. DJ Trump, but this is on Thursday, is at 37%, the same old situation there. Quinnipiac poll has Murphy ahead of Gadagano. This is in Jersey by 25 points there. And Reuters has DJ Trump at 35 and 24 disapprove of DJ. YouGov at 42, and congressional approval, well, that's always very low at 24% there. And right direction, wrong direction at right direction at 31, wrong track at 54. These have been pretty consistent. And we have an Emerson poll out. This is on the Alabama race. Roy Moore is ahead by 14. Moore is at 40, and Big Lufus Strange, Love, is at 26%. I haven't seen a poll yet, but had Strange Love in a very good position, period, here, and I don't see anything else here. So that is for the polling, and the Koreans have fired the Democratic People's Republic fired a second ballistic missile across Japan. Nothing new there. And Cleveland has a 23, I believe, streak there. Winning streak is longer than his career. This is Mr. Craig Allen here, 3-2 over the Royals. The Cleveland, anyway, 22 game winning streak. So he's never lost a game, Mr. Allen, since he has been there. He's a rookie, and so there you go there, and on goes Cleveland. Nonetheless, here are the scores from Thursday night. We'll get them here in a minute. Well, we hope to get them here in a minute. We will get them here in a minute. We're down, I think, to 12 games or something like that left in the season, so there's some wild cards out there. We'll go over more of that on the Monday Morning Quarterback and on the weekman was. Nonetheless, the White Sox were in the Motor City, Sox 17-7. The Athletics were in Fenway Park, Red Sox 6-2 there. The Reds were in St. Louis. The Cards finally win a game 5-2. The Rockies were in Arizona and were shut out by the D-backs 7-zip. The Orioles and Yankees in New York. Yankees 13-5. Atlanta was in Washington. Nationals 5-2 in that contest. The Marlins were in Philadelphia and were shut out by the Phillies 10-zip. And in 10, the game we just talked about, there's a walk-off home run, Cleveland 3-2 over the Royals of Kansas City. The Mariners and Rangers in Texas, Mariners 10-4. The Mets and Cubs in Wrigley, it was all Cubs, 14-6 there. Cubs had 14 hits, 1 error. And the Mets, 11 hits and 3 errors. Mr. Mike Montgomery finally got him a win. And in 10, another 10-inning game, the Blue Jays were in the Twin Cities. Twins are 3-2 in that contest. And finally, the Astros, the game we tuned into, pulled it off a 5-2 over the Angels out in California. The Astros had 10 hits, no errors, and the Angels 2 hits and 5 errors. Ooh. You don't win games like that. And we'll do a special presentation on Google. And this is from The Guardian. We'll just start off. Google segregates women into lower paying jobs. stifling careers, the lawsuit said. Google systematically pays women less than men doing similar work. This has been the basis of many, many lawsuits, whether it be on gender discrimination or on racial discrimination. It was filed Thursday on behalf of all women employed by Google in California over the last 4 years. And data is there, and we'll get into it. And a growing chorus of women, of course, that are speaking out. Kelly Ellis, former Google worker, is the lead plaintiff in the case, told the Guardian in her first interview about the suit that there's been a lot of PR and lip service. And I went to one of these at an Android conference. A lot of lip service there, but that was about all it was. The claim that Google is violating labor laws by paying women less than men for substantially the similar work comes in time when a male-dominated tech sector is reeling from complaints about sexual harassment, discrimination, apparent lack of diversity. The U.S. Labor Department first accused the corporations of extreme pay discrepancy. Now, this is on DJ Trump in April. So they are under fire, and we'll get into this. Plaintiffs allege a sexist culture at Google. Class action complaint filed in San Francisco includes three named plaintiffs who offer specific stories of assigning and keeping female employers in lower compensated areas. Ellis, who was hired in 2010 as a software engineer for Google Photos, the company placed her in a level 3 position, typically assigned to new college graduates. Several weeks later, Google hired a male software engineer who graduated the same year as Ellis, and he was a level 4. Level 4 engineers receive substantially higher salaries, opportunities, bonuses, etc. A little bit of going in both male software engineers who were less qualified than Ellis are at the same level were promoted to level 4s or higher positions. And this is where the rubber meets the road. And let me finish this up here. And this is not good for Google. The New York Times obtained an internal Google spreadsheet showing that women on the average were paid less than men within the same job levels and tended to receive lower bonus. Google was faced with similar allegations in 2015, claimed to the Times that the spreadsheet was not representative and did not take into account factors like job performance. That has been a skirt issue scam, red herring for a long time. Whether employees that were high-paying technical roles. Ellis recalls how disappointing it was to see no women making presentations at first all-hands engineering meetings when she attended at Google. And that's been the thing. Women usually introduce to people those sorts of things. That is how she added that she hoped the lawsuit will put other tech firms on notice. In fact, we've even had people in Silicon Valley that claim that these were like independent contractors or small-time entrepreneurs, but they had never seen a discrimination. Well, they were too small to see it. It's part of the problem there. And a lot of times marginal operators out there also, you'll see plenty of that going on. Nonetheless, this weekend we have an open source report. That's our WBR radio technical report, and we get into Stutz and the Equifax problems there, wide problems at Equifax, including in Argentina, where the password, this is the password to get into the workers' console, was admin. That's something you'll see commonly in routers. It's just a temporary password. It's not meant to be the going password. I can remember working for a bank once, and we used a temporary password for Equifax. I believe it was Equifax, called Barney Ruble. I don't know if they still use Barney Ruble, but that was just temporary to log in and the security officials at that bank then put their strong password in, and we'll assume today it's two-factor. We don't know. But some of the things out there, and we'll be looking at the poverty levels, those sorts of things on Numbers Man. That's our economics report, be more specifically macroeconomics. We do that every week here under the banner Numbers Man. And we'll have the special programming. I think we mentioned that coming in with Dick Gregory's memorial will be in Landover, Maryland. And we'll have some people hopefully talking about Dick Gregory. That'll be on some of the outlets, shorter versions on other parts of the outlet. And that will do it for us. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on The Week That Was on Saturday morning. Good day.